Hi, I'm John Maxwell. When the top companies in the world are looking for trainers, speakers, and coaches, there's one name that stands above the rest, and that's Maxwell Leadership. Our certified team members have gotten proven results for companies all over the globe, and our reputation, I'm proud to say, is second to none. Some of our members have risen to the top of their profession, including the one you're going to meet today. I proudly introduce you to my friend Bob Fabian Zinka.
Welcome to the Leadership and Success Podcast with your host, Coach BZ, where we help you lead with purpose and succeed with impact. If you're ready to grow into the kind of leader others want to follow, this podcast is for you. If you're determined to elevate your success and leave a lasting legacy, this podcast is for you. As my mentor, Dr. John C. Maxwell reminds us, everything rises and falls on leadership. Our goal is simple: to inspire you, challenge you, and equip you with insights that can transform the trajectory of your leadership journey. Welcome aboard to another episode of the Leadership and Success Podcast with Coach BZ.
Talk us through the newspapers. Dan Södergren's with us.
Dan Södergren is here, who's a marketing expert.
Technology analyst Dan Södergren, who joins us now.
Is Dan Södergren, who's a digital marketing and technology specialist.
Use AI to help you become more productive.
Dan Södergren.
Dan Södergren.
I'm Dan Södergren.
Will 5G be in the future?
Well, it's the thing that's going to power the next industrial revolution. So it's actually critical for pretty much everything that's going to be happening in the future. It's the kind of the backbone of it.
What artificial intelligence mean?
Well, that's a really interesting one. In real layman's terms, I must probably not call it artificial intelligence. I'd actually just call it clever computers or computer stuff.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Leadership and Success Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. We have a very special guest waiting in the green room. But before we get started, as is our tradition, we like to start with a moment of gratitude. And for those who have been following me this entire month, we are celebrating Black History Month in the US. So every single day this month, I am really grateful for the contribution of African American to America. I believe we really, truly have built this country with our bare hand, our sweat, and our blood. And I am so grateful for the contribution of African American to this country and the world, and really the American culture, which is pretty much exported all around the world. And I want to welcome all of my friends from the other side of the pond. I've invited all of my friends who live in the UK to be here because I have one of yours I'm going to be interviewing in just a second. So good afternoon to you guys and good morning to those here in the US. And I want to remind everyone, please let us know where you are joining us from. Those from the US, what city and state, and from a foreign country, let us know what city and which country you are joining us from. And also, one thing you are grateful for today, and most importantly, if you do have a question for Dan on LinkedIn or YouTube Live, please type your question in the comments and we will answer your question live. All right, before we get started here, let me see if I can properly introduce our guest today. So today we are speaking to Dan Södergren. He's a globally recognized tech futurist, TEDx speaker, AI strategist and media commentator who specializes in the fifth industrial revolution, the era where human leadership meets machine intelligence. So from startup founder to BBC technology expert, Dan equips leaders to think strategically about AI, culture, and the evolving workforce. So this conversation is going to be especially powerful for those who follow me in the military and also cybersecurity and tech executives. So without any further ado, please help me welcome to the Leadership and Success podcast, Dan Södergren.
Hi there, everyone.
Right. Good afternoon, Dan. How are you doing today?
Yeah, no, very well. Thank you for such a lovely intro. And yeah, I felt like I should be doing some kind of dancing as I came on because of your great intro too.
Thank you. No, it's really a great honor to be here. I guess it's been a while, maybe 8 or 9 months we've been trying to make this happen. So I am so grateful you are right here on my screen. I can't believe it. So maybe to get started then, what is one thing you are grateful for today?
Well, over in the UK, it's half term, and so I'm a sole parent to my teenage daughter, which is an adventure and teaches me something every day. So I'm going to go. It might seem a little bit a bit of an odd one, but I'm going to go. I'm very grateful for my daughter. I'm also going to be very grateful that she doesn't come in the next hour, but she might. So you might all meet her. I'm hoping not, because I have prepped her that I'm doing something live on TV, so best not to come in. But I'm very grateful for my daughter.
Wow, that is so wonderful. Yeah, I have 2 daughters, and our last one is 18 years old now. So she's in the 12th grade, hopefully starting college in the fall. So we'll see how that goes. Wow, that is so wonderful. And what is something about you that most people may not know when they first meet you?
I suppose that being a sole parent one is most probably one of the things, which is why I'm a great believer in flexible work and hybrid work, and I've been talking about it for a decade. Maybe that's something people do know that. They might not know that I've had a few tech companies, and that's why I was called a tech futurist, because I had a augmented reality company about 17 years ago, before augmented reality really was a thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That far ahead of stuff, right? That's why I'd rather be called a billionaire philanthropist rather than tech futurist. But my lot in this life is tech futurist rather than the very rich. So I tend to do things a little bit ahead of the curve. I've calmed that down a bit now. But certainly, I had the joy of being in some of the pioneering communities and around AI and technology and data for the last 30 years or so.
That is quite amazing, because you've gone from marketing agency owner to tech founder to AI futurist, like you just mentioned. What was the inflection point where you realized the future of work would define your mission?
Well, it's a really interesting one, because when I was very, very young, and I'm very, very old now, so I had the joy of helping people start their own businesses. I also had but my first company was a co-founded company called THTC, the hemp trading company. So I was an environmentalist and very much in the eco kind of world. Made loads of stuff out of hemp before people knew what hemp was, and made hemp paper and cosmetics and clothes and all sorts of things. So certainly my job, or my belief that my life is important, was always trying to change the world for a positive. But to answer your question around why did I move out of marketing, because I had my own marketing agency and then sold it, went to Mexico, came back and had a marketing training agency. Why did I move from that into your flock and HR and tech and AI? Between me and you, I have a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, whose very good friend is someone very high up in the AI world, a chap called Demis. And Demis, sorry, I'm gonna butcher your second name. I always do, so my apologies, and sorry for the name drop. But Demis Hables, who is most probably, times one of the 10 most 100 most influential people in the world, but certainly he runs Google DeepMind. He sold DeepMind to Google, right? If you know Demis, you must probably know how to say Demis' second name better than me. But I've met him a few times over the years. Every conversation I've had with him, and we are talking about since I was 18, so almost 3 decades and a bit. It just changed my life, what he said. And it's almost, this is why it's so scary, and I'm stumbling with my words, Bob, because it's a bizarre coincidence. It's almost to the day that 10 years ago, he said to me, marketing is going to fundamentally change, and you need to start looking at AI in marketing. But more importantly, artificial intelligence will make agencies not exist in 10 years.
Yes.
He wasn't exactly right with that, because marketing agencies do still exist, but he was pretty much bang on the money. It was 2 days ago. It's my friend's 40th, and that's where we were. And now a decade later. So I moved out of what I was doing in marketing and training. I still train companies in marketing and still train companies in AI marketing. But my focus very much went into company culture. A company that I co-founded called Your Flock, which used HR and data and AI stuff before it was kind of fashionable. And yeah, that's why I changed, because of sorry, there you go. That's the reason why I changed anyway.
No, that is wonderful. Yeah, talking about Dennis Asabis, right? I think is
I think that's right. Yeah, sorry, I never noticed Dennis.
Really
Sorry.
a world changer for sure. So, what leadership lesson did you learn from building and scaling startup that still shape how you are thinking today?
Well, again, it's terrible that my ego is so big that I'll quote myself when I'll answer this question. But it's not really an ego thing. It's just more. In 2015, I was working with a different company called Just Taxi, and Just Taxi was going up. But the CEO didn't know this at the time, which I thought was very amusing. But he wasn't a massive, global tech geek, so to speak. He wasn't looking globally. Anyway, this thing called Uber was in America. And I kept telling him, "There's a thing called Uber," and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll be fine." And I was like, "Uber's really, you have to move real quick, right? Because Uber's going to be really good." But then, we were literally selling something that was going up against Uber, which wasn't a it was basically helping taxi companies have their own version of Uber. Right? So we were, X amount of time, a decade or so ahead of the game. If they'd done it, they most probably could have stood up against Uber a little bit better, as some countries did and some cities did. Anyway, it's not about that. So anyway, at the time, in 2015, I came up with a quote from one of my keynotes, which was the following, which is, with the right people and the right technology, you can take over the world. Without them, that world takes over you.
Wow.
And that's where that came from, because it was all about cars and Just Taxi and these things. And that's one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned there. And you have to have both. You have to have the right people and the right technology. And that is one of the critical things. If you don't have those two things right to start off with, it's likely you're not going to change the world, and that world, you're going to be taken over by the world. And so maybe that's the easiest and most very succinct way of putting it.
Wow. Now, one thing about being an entrepreneur, we always focus on all of your great successes, and you've had many. What about failure? Was there maybe a failure you are willing to share that kind of reshaped your leadership philosophy?
So many, it's unbelievable, really. I mean, this is one of the reasons for Your Flock, which was an HR tech company, which was basically looking at, could you codify and use data to work out company culture? And the answer is yes, you can. But because of ChatGPT and the huge rise of AI, we didn't get our third round of funding. But I think if we had done, we'd be really in a good spot now, because that's a very, very fashionable place and a very good place to be, data and HR, etc. Anyway, so really, not making data-driven decisions was some of the worst things I've ever done. Because this thing about intuition, isn't it? Some people's intuition is amazing, apparently. I always think data, without data, you've just got an opinion. But this is the thing. In the early days of AI sequencing, etc., it was slightly better than intuition. But some of the worst decisions I've made as a leader have been based on gut feelings. And of course, it's very tempting, isn't it, to go, I feel this, my life experience says this, and therefore I'll do this. And of course, this is why you'll find it, as we all do now, in tech communities, but also in marketing and creative agencies, they are, because they are monocultural, the diversity problem is one of the biggest things that's going to kill them. They cannot think differently and quickly enough at this revolutionary time. And I must confess that I hired people that thought like me. And that's not necessarily the best thing to do. I'm not saying just because of my neurodiversity, don't hire people like me. We can be brilliant. But, I'm not a complete finisher. I'm an ideas person. I move quickly, etc. Sometimes you want the opposite. And that, of course, if you're going with your gut, you might not realize. Does that make sense?
Yes, that is very, very insightful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And many leaders today, they kind of still fear AI, and they want to wait to see what it's going to be all about now. Definitely in the last couple of years, AI has pretty much taken over every single industry across the globe. And you are quite optimistic about artificial intelligence. Where does that optimism come from?
Well, okay, that again, great. I see. I was worried. It is a great question. Where does my optimism come from? I suppose some of it's innate. I'm just a naturally optimistic kind of person. I think we're very lucky to exist on the planet. I think we're 1 trillion to 1 bet that we would even just exist. And the fact we can exist through revolutionary times like this is mind-blowing. I mean, I was, trying to program a ZX Spectrum. And if you're old enough to remember the ZX Spectrums or Commodores or Amigas, I don't know what the American version may have been, but very basic rubbish. It had like 10 colors, right? So I was sitting there playing computer games, very excited. and thinking, my goodness, what would happen in the future? Now, all my dreams about computer games have pretty much come true. My first passion was computer games, hence knowing Demis, and a lot of people don't realize Demis's background is computer gaming, which of course, and you could even argue artificial intelligence is part of computer gaming. But we won't go into that because that'll go too far. But the point being is that I think we're very lucky to live in these times. And we're also very lucky that we've got a chance where we can actually shape the destiny. Now, you were talking about, the great black Afro-Americans that have shaped America. But 200 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right?
True.
100 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to have companies.
Yes.
50 years ago, we wouldn't have the technology where we can make a difference. Now, all these things are why I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic because statistically, this is the only time I could have lived to do what I do. Wow. And I'll be damned if I'm going to do it in a negative way because, my God, look at the past. Things could have been a lot worse.
Yes.
So my optimism comes in later. The other reason for my optimism around AI, and I've got to put this in, is because not only because I had the joy of talking to some folk who, without me knowing it, became hugely important in this world, but I know their intentions behind this. Some of their intent, well, to be fair, but their intentions behind it. And their intentions, I can say, for some of the people involved in the AI world are actually really very, very cool and very funky. They are literally, they are. And if you then look at what AI gives us the potential to become and do, that's amazingly optimistic because everybody can become more productive. Everybody can have more agency. Everybody can become Brand Me PLC, and they can have a series of interns, I like to call AI automated interns, but a series of interns underneath them that basically gives them almost a superpower, which you couldn't have done 5 years ago. So I get there's negative sides to that as well, but my goodness, we can control the destiny of the world and our own personal world so much more than we could have even 3 years ago. And next, I know it sounds awful, but you ain't seen nothing yet. It's the future is around the corner right now. And in the next 3 months, I mean, even the changes in the last week, as you know, Bob, the changes in the last week with some of these things is mind-blowing. Am I as optimistic as I was? No, because of the speed of the revolution. And I think the speed inherently is a problem. Human beings don't move as quickly as this does. Cultures don't change as quickly as this will. And revolutions are not always fair. And revolutions are not always, let's just say there's lots of bloody revolutions. And we could have a situation now very, very soon. I think it's not even on the horizon, it's right next to us, where because of course in all revolutions, we talk about this with leadership, the uncertainty factor is so high that you have this moment where employee engagement's dropping at the same time technology rises. We have all the reasons for a revolution. The revolution happens, but there's no leadership in the revolution. And then you just have chaos. And I am a little bit worried at the moment because of the geopolitical situation we're in, and that there is not a lot of moral leadership at the time when we most probably need it most.
Well, hopefully this website is going to just make a small dent into that, at least get the people talking and thinking about what's right around the corner. Talking about the next revolution, you talk a lot about the fifth industrial revolution. Can you tell us more about that and how it's different from the four previous industrial revolution?
Well, I know you have a very clever crowd. I know you're a very clever man yourself. So I'm not gonna explain all four industrial revolutions without time. But each one of them was contained by a certain moment, normally a technological trigger. And again, lots of people don't look at why do we have that revolution? People think, and also same with social revolutions. People think, we had a social revolution for society reasons. Well, actually, normally it's technological and economic reasons. Like if you look at you go back as far as something like the Gutenberg printing press, for example, that created huge amounts of revolution, but actually much deeper than people realize. Like it created the Reformation and things like capitalism and the concepts underneath all these things that make it work. You can tell because I did psychology and sociology and anthropology, I could go on, but the deeper thing around this is the technological trigger creates that change, right? So each one of them had a technological trigger: steam, water, steam, manufacturing, these things. You could argue, and I think this is where people do, they go, 4.0 is about computers and connectivity, etc. And absolutely right, that is the case. The fifth industrial revolution, though, is different because AI and artificial intelligence is not just like computers. It isn't just like a manufacturing process. It isn't. And this is why we have to realize this is the fifth industrial revolution. The reason why I use it so much is because it change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. Wayne Dyer said this brilliantly. And the point being is, if you don't call it a revolution, then you start blaming yourself. You're like, oh, why is this happening to me? Oh God, it's because I'm too slow. No, it's a revolution. Revolutions aren't fair. Revolutions are amazingly fast. Revolutions create uncertainty. This is the fifth industrial revolution. This is why we're in the state we're in. This is the tornado that happens. It takes off. Have you ever seen the Wizard of Oz? Dorothy gets taken up with this tornado. She has no choice in this. And now as businesses, we have no choice. And if we want, we can argue against it and say, no, we're not going to change. But unfortunately, the world is changing and has changed. So the fifth industrial revolution, I characterize it in the book. There's 4 different intelligences that we're going to need. Artificial intelligence, emotional intelligence, organizational intelligence, and independent intelligence. And that's what's different between the last ones. The other one, I'd say as well, and it's a big difference here, is that the fifth industrial revolution potentially is one where it's a people's revolution. Yeah. And that has the potential. That's my thought anyway, but there you go.
Wow, that is quite insightful. So what do you think will then separate leaders who thrive from those who become completely irrelevant?
One of the things that leadership has to look at more, and again, it's not fair because this revolution is moving so quickly, is emotional intelligence. And it's the emotional intelligence that people have to start considering. Do you have enough emotional intelligence to lead your team or your company? Now, a lot of leaders, because of where they were brought up and because how they were brought up and how they got the job, and sometimes leadership is foisted upon us, we don't necessarily have that emotional intelligence. It wasn't particularly fashionable 20 years to be teaching people about emotional intelligence, but EQ is going to be more important than IQ because IQ is going to be done by the computers and by artificial intelligence. Then the other one I'd say most probably is we have to have more independent intelligence. And again, independent intelligence isn't necessarily something we wanted in the different industrial revolutions. In fact, we vehemently didn't want people to think for themselves in most of the industrial revolutions. We needed them to be automatons and to sit in the factory line and do stuff, right? We needed them to do certain things. Now, independent intelligence, to have the courage to think differently, is what we need more than ever. And I think that is one of the things leaders are going to find tricky.
Wow. So it's quite fascinating. So I did find it. So your website, the fifth industrial revolution.co.uk. So that's where they can get a copy of your book, right? The New Intelligence, the Fifth Industrial Revolution. That is quite fascinating. So for the people who are listening right now, because I do care a lot about the next generation of leader. Maybe they are still in school working on their bachelor's degree or whatever, and they're kind of afraid AI may be taking away jobs. What would you advise to a student who's preparing to work, let's say, in the next 4 or 5 years? How are they going to be successful, you think, in this new era of AI?
Well, I mean, number one, I'll bring it into the 4 intelligences, right? Like number one, they have to have independent intelligence. They have to be self-learning. They can't just say, oh, I'm going to make, my degree is going to be enough, because your degree is not going to be enough. The deeper things would be emotional intelligence. How good are you at actually collaborating and talking to other human beings and being more human? One of the weird things about the fifth industrial revolution is this because of the AI, it actually means human qualities are more important. The soft skills, as they used to be called, will become the hard skills. The soft skills will become the power skills. And this is one of the things that's really tripping up a lot of people, because they're like, but I'm a technically brilliant, lawyer. Yeah, and you might be. But if AI can do that job, what's your job? The same with doctors. I'm amazing at being a doctor and doing all this diagnosis stuff. Yeah, but that's what AI will do. It'll do it 10 times quicker and 100 times cheaper. So what's your job? And then, of course, we then into this weird world where people are like, oh, God, my job is actually to talk to patients. Oh, no, my job is to be creative thinking. Oh, no, my job is to, it goes on and on, right? Now that, if you look at what the WEF was saying, forum, AI, those skills are up there. So if you don't know about AI, you don't know about, you haven't learned how to prompt Claude, or you don't understand anything about, you're only still using ChatGPT, and you have no idea what large language models are out there, and you don't know the differences between them, then that you need to do. You'll need to learn that. I think did some work with Personia. I think it's something like, it's quite ironic because of the number, but it's something like 67% of CEOs won't hire someone without AI skills over the next 1 to 5 years. And the double irony being, of course, is that they themselves don't have AI skills. But this is not the first time this has happened, is it? You remember? Maybe you were old enough to remember when you went to a boss and someone and they were like, "I don't do emails, but you better do."
Yes.
I have a secretary that does that. It's that kind of thing. Same principle. Same with in-house servers or mobile phones. I mean, technology always has this same kind of thing that happens, and same thing happens on social media. But again, I digress. Those soft skills, as they're called, the extracurricular activities, the ability to collaborate and to co-create and to creatively think and think differently, but also critically think. They're the things that will make the difference, because the machines will do the rest. And of course, as a society, we have to fundamentally think what happens in this fifth industrial revolution. Because in the first bit of the industrial revolution, there will be a mass losing of jobs. Now, the problem we have with this industrial revolution, or the interesting facet of it, and as I'll quote Demis here, because he did say it brilliantly, I always talk about it in the keynotes, this is likely to be 10 times bigger than the other industrial revolutions, but just happen 100 times quicker. And that's the difference. So it's not fair that this one's so quick. It's not fair this one's so big. But it is. And that's what happens. ChatGPT now is, I think it's almost, is it 900 million users? It's almost,
pretty incredible.
ChatGPT, and again, I could bore you with the history of why it's called 3.5 and why it kind of came out of the blue. And Sam Altman did this strange move, but again, there's a whole history behind that. Not for now, but it hit the 100 million user mark. Well, let's put it a different way. The humble telephone took 72 years to get to 100 million users. ChatGPT took 72 days. ChatGPT 5.2 took 72 hours, but it got to 800 million.
Incredible.
This whole new world. And that is one out of the potential, I don't know, 8, 10 different LLMs that you could use. I'm not even here to say that ChatGPT is either good or bad. Far from it. It's like the vacuum cleaner of the Hoover world, or whichever way around those are. You might have the same idiom in America, but we have kind of you vacuum or you Hoover your house in the UK. But it's a vacuum cleaner. It's just a brand name. But there are hundreds of different brand names of Hoover, right? Or around vacuums. ChatGPT is, I'm always worried that, I think it's something like 95% of people use it for free. That should be fundamental. I mean, and people are using it for free for their work. We did some work with Personio, and I think 67% of people are doing this thing called shadow AI. I mean, you'll love this from a cybersecurity point of view. Shadow AI, right? Using it outside the AI policy. Then I did some other work with another company, and we worked out that only 54% of companies have an AI policy. So, and then you're thinking, okay, where's the employee stand at this moment? And of course, you have this horrible thing where it's about 66%. It's always around the 60s and 50s, but 66% of people do not believe they've had decent enough AI training. So you can see why leadership's in turmoil through this revolution, because most of their employees haven't had enough training. They haven't got a leadership, let's put it a different way, they haven't got a policy around that moment anyway. They don't really have to handle it themselves, and the world's moving quicker every day. If that doesn't say to you revolution, my friend, I don't know what does.
I guess I'm really excited we are living in this time in history, because there is so much potential, right? And I guess some of it can be a little bit scary. I understand why some people are anxious, but they really do need to get into the game. So one thing you've said is AI and emotional intelligence, they really must evolve together, right? Why is that so critical?
Well, again, this is just between me and you. This is, and also the people I did go to my keynotes and who I train. Without that emotional intelligence, you have a big problem, right? If you think about it from a leadership point of view, if you're leading through a time of mass uncertainty, which this is, a good friend of mine, Tom Cheesewright, says, living through uncertain times, but also the time of high frequency change. This is a perfect time for high frequency change, which creates mass uncertainty. And as you'll know, and from a neuroscience point of view, it's one of the worst emotions a human being can actually have is uncertainty. It's better to know your fate rather than to be uncertain. Now, loads of people are uncertain at this moment in time. Now, if you're not emotionally intelligent enough to realize that fear creates a certain thing inside people, uncertainty creates fear, and actually you've got to overcome that fear, and you've got to help them, and you've got to lead them to do this. I mean, it's one of these weird things now where leaders are basically saying, right, we need to do this stuff, but I'm not going to do it myself. They're not leading. They're just trying to boss people around, and you can't boss people around a revolution. You can't say, we're going to take, you have to do it from the front. We're going to take the hill together. Great, because it's part of the revolution. That's what happens in revolutions. Now, one of the weirdest things, if you do that without any emotional intelligence, you're in trouble. because we don't have, and this is the thing, and you'll know
Yes.
this, you'll know complex change, right? It's the military are brilliant because they get the fact you need to incentivize people. Not only are they paid, it's also a great incentive in not dying, or saving your friend's life. And there's a great moral incentive. There's a great why. You don't have to answer the why. But now, of course, businesses are in this. Why do we do what we do?
Yes.
What are the incentives we can give our people? Because it's the classic 5 pillars of change. Do you have the vision? Lots of companies have the vision, yes, because they say we want to use AI to make us more productive, right? Have you given the people the skills? Well, 66% of people do not believe they've been given the skills. So that's a mistake. As soon as you haven't given them the skills, that creates anxiety. And that's where we are. People are anxious. And that's because you've created it yourself. Then there's things like frustration. How do you make people frustrated? Well, you don't give them the resources. Well, that's why people are using free versions of AI, because you haven't given them the licenses. That's insane. That's like turning up to, and they just go, oh, you haven't got a laptop. Oh, you haven't got a mobile phone. But do crack on. I'm old enough to remember when people weren't given a laptop and mobile phone.
Yes.
And that time very quickly stopped because we realized technology was going to be important. Then you've got things like this, my big one. And again, this is about emotional intelligence, but also organizational intelligence. Because of the revolution, because it happened so quickly, we have to change how we did business before. This is not a time of business as usual. One of the big ones is incentives. Like, what is the incentive for the company cultural change that you want to do that has to involve everyone, that you're leading from the front, but what's the actual incentive? So I'll give you a particular example. Let's say someone gets really good at using AI for a particular role. What is their incentive to share that information with the rest of the company and the people doing that job?
Yes.
And right now, in what I would call modern capitalism, or I'm not going to say end of stage capitalism, but certainly modern monopolized capitalism, where we are now.
Yes.
I'm not sure, and I haven't met a company yet, because I asked this quite a lot. I train companies and try to think about it, but we're still not. I mean, not surprising. Got to remember, 2 years ago, AI wasn't really on the spreadsheets. AI training only just got on there. Now I'm asking them to incentivize, business management around an objective if they don't even understand. I mean, it's impossible. But think about it. If you had a centralized database of good prompts that other people could rank, and then you could all vote for the different ones, well, what happens when someone wins? If someone wins the best prompt of the day, what do they get? And please don't say they're not fired. That's not enough.
Yes.
Just like, in the military, you can't say, oh, we're going to take the hill. Brilliant. Amazing weapons. By the way, if we don't, I'm going to shoot you. Because it's just, there'd be no incentive. But my apologies. I realise my military knowledge is nothing. So sorry about that. But you understand that. Well, understand that.
I get your point. Yeah.
Incentives are going to be the key bit. And right now, I don't think we have very many answers, apart from very small tech companies. I think that's why very small tech companies are winning, because they can incentivize their people in a different way to maximize the use of technology around them. And that's why we talk about independent intelligence. The ability. Are we letting even our young people, are we letting our employees have that sense of courage to self-learn and then come back to the leadership team and say, hi, I've learned this?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Because I talk to a lot of leaders, and I know they say this. They say, "Oh, yes, it's very important." There's a great research that's just come out. I think it's only today. Nick Bloom came out. Well, it might not be Nick Bloom's report. Sorry, Nick. It's on LinkedIn. But the CEOs, CIOs, they believe that productivity. I'm amazed by this. That productivity is going. They believe that productivity might double in the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
Because of AI. Absolutely. Now, that could be. I mean, I could absolutely guarantee that can be true. But it takes a huge company culture change for it to happen. AI's got that potential, yes, because in certain roles you could be 4 times better than you are now because of what we can do. But my goodness, you've got to incentivize the people, because if you're saying we're going to double productivity, but you're not going to share any of the wealth, why would anyone say yes? The human psychology is so much more important than the AI technology. And that's why I think the 5th Industrial Revolution is interesting, because it's actually more about us as people. It's actually our psychology. Whether we want to go along on this revolution, that's going to be key to whether it's a success.
Wow, that is quite insightful. I've never quite thought of it that way. In that case, then, what leadership traits do you think become more important in this era with all of the automation, AI, and robotics?
I mean, if we're talking about characterizations and kind of abilities, maybe abilities is different. One of the ones, and I always stumble with it because it's very unfashionable, and that is the idea of a servant leader. That will be the best position to be in. Like, that you look at leadership, that you can serve other people. so they can become the best versions of themselves. Like, so it proves that I'm a bit of a geek, but apologies to anyone else who isn't a geek and won't get this at all, but you will, because everyone understands the idea of superheroes. If you are managing a load of superheroes, that is different to managing 1,000 people in a factory. And if you've got, and they've all got different abilities and different. So, but how do you do it? If you don't have a superhero ability, how do you manage superheroes? Then that's the big question for us all: is how do you manage people who are ridiculously flexible but ridiculously productive, like on a scale that we never saw before? They are 10 times more productive. Like we used to joke, we used to say, "Oh, he's a 10x, coder," and you treated them differently because, oh God, without them, the company would go, or times 100. What happens now if everybody comes at times 10, and if or maybe 5% of your company becomes a times 10? It's very likely, and people don't like this, it's unfashionable, but it's very likely that in the future, companies are going to be smaller. Teams are going to be smaller, decentralized teams making decisions quicker in the revolution. Much more likely to be the case. Now, if all those people, you only got 5 people, let's say, and each one of them's, a times 10, is 50 people. But the way you manage those 5 people has to be different, right? It has to be emotional and hands-on and people management skills and soft skills. And it cannot be anything else. And what happens if one of them leaves? So the whole thing changes. It's a bit more like all my analogies are just very blokey. Sorry, but it's a bit like managing a soccer team. You'd say foot soccer rather than football. But even so, or any sports team, it's much smaller teams doing amazing things, and each one of them's a superstar. Now that's going to be an internal issue for any leader. So suddenly you're going to have humble leadership. You have to have emotionally intelligent, humble leadership that looks at itself as a service function.
Yes,
I'm not sure that a lot of leaders like the idea of that, but the ones that do get that are the ones that will not just survive but will thrive, because AI is going to do a lot of it. Now, the other thing to bring in, and I would do because it's data and AI, but when you start looking at the data potential and the AI potential around leadership, it is pretty mind-blowing. Whether it gets it right or not is a deeper conversation. Whether it can get it right now is a very dangerous proposition. I've been arguing against AI in recruitment for at least 7 years. I still argue against it now. I don't think people have cracked it. But if you have the data and you can understand that data is not oil, it's soil. It's soil. How you grow the next bit of your company will be in this data-rich soil. And you can use AI to help you do that. And then you realize you are more like the farmer than anything else. Some things are outside of your control, but if you knew your soil and you knew your crops, and you knew what you had to do, you'd be a much better leader. I'm not 100% sure, and I might be wrong. I'm not 100% sure that was taught in leadership schools and management schools.
Yes.
And I don't think it was 20 years ago, only because I was kind of there. Actually, no, 30 years ago. Gosh, I am old.
Well, still looking on, but it's everything you say is really fascinating, and it really gets people to think. Now, you've appeared on the BBC and major media outlet. What have you learned about communicating complex tech simply?
That's a really good one. Well, the BBC, they do like to bring me on. They're always like, it's because you make really complicated things simple. What they don't know is I'm actually very simple. So I have to make complicated things simple because I don't understand them. So I'm not the brightest petal in the box. So the best way to do it, I always think, is metaphor and analogy, really, if you can. For example, and again, change the way you look at things you look at change. Yes. If you look at AI like electricity, you have a sudden realize around it, and you go, because electricity can be bad. Yes, it's kind of it can be bad, it can be good. If you don't train your people not to put their fingers in sockets, they're going to electrocute. Right? But we had to train people to stop doing that. You do still with children now, and you make sure there's safeguards, etc.
Yes.
But also the companies that create the electricity have a responsibility. They do. It could be as simple as we use 240 volts. If you supply 480 volts, then things are going to explode. By the way, proving the point, I don't know that much about electricity. So if anyone does, and I've got all this wrong, what's the metaphor? Don't know. Yes. But we do have different voltages, right? Now, if you look in the history books, and I'm always surprised when people don't, but it's fascinating that at the time when it first came out, you had like 5 or 6 different companies' lines going to people's houses because everyone was fighting about who was going to provide the electricity, right? And there was different voltages. It was mad. Yes. Things were falling down and zapping people, and everyone was dying. And people were like, electricity is going to be like this new, communist thing that's going to take over the world, and we're all going to be entrapped. Now think about it. That's pretty similar to AI now, isn't it? 4 or 5 main providers, different voltages, different abilities, everyone panicking, everyone saying it's dangerous, everything, that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we want just one, but what I does make me smart is because the revolutions happen so quickly here. Is that if you look to the past and you use a metaphor or two, then it suddenly opens your mind to where we are. Metaphors are brilliant for doing that. Obviously, they stumble down when you start thinking, well, electricity is not the same as AI, Dan, because AI can think for itself. Yes, I know, but it powers things, and that's what it can do now. I think it was some great people said, just like electricity powered the last hundreds of different industries over the last 100 years. Now AI will do the same. That's where we are. So I always think if you can use metaphor and you can weigh it up to whether it's good or bad, then I think that's always a good way of simplifying.
Yeah, actually, one thing you mentioned, I think I want to talk a little bit about this, right? The responsibility for those who actually develop AI. Now, another thing I love about this podcast, you are all the way across the pond in the UK, and most people tend to think, like as in silo. And I kind of know, for example, here in Silicon Valley in the US, we don't really have a lot of laws, regulation, and policy. It's really like a race to the bottom almost. Like we really want to be first to and get to AGI at any cost, it seems like. And over there, in especially the European Union, UK isn't exactly part of that anymore, but you are pretty close. You European, you really think about safety, privacy, ethics, which is extremely important, and we don't do that well here in the US. So what are your thoughts about the role of ethics, safety, security, and privacy as we develop and deploy artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I knew one of the questions would be just too big for me. It's probably 4 minutes and I've got to answer that. Who is the right God? Discuss. Oh no, right, that's a bit big. And it does make me smile because I would much rather the UK was much.
Because I guess another thing that does concern me a little bit, it's been confirmed as an information warfare commander for the first time in history, the US military has actually used AI to enable them to do a surgical strike in Venezuela and capture Maduro. It was really aided by AI. That's never been done before. So what could potentially happen in the future? Who knows? I feel like we definitely need to have some pretty clear guardrails on how to use this technology.
I mean, the idea of not having guardrails, we've all seen Terminator, so let's not get too silly about it. We all have, right? And we all know what happens if the military machine. I mean, that's the whole thing. The whole point is we're moving into this new world of robots pretty quickly. And we start thinking about military. Well, you start thinking about
because just you mentioned that in China they just had a huge festival. They had robots doing kung fu, perfect kung fu. Can you believe that? What if they just change their mind and they start killing people? That is possible, right?
Well, that's the whole point about guardrails, right? So I'm always, because I've got to, because otherwise I get too excited myself. So if we can, robots are one thing, AI is definitely another. I understand the AI brain goes in the robot. Completely get it. I'm totally with you. But as you know yourself, they are very, very separate fundamentals. And so it's physical ability versus the other stuff as well. As well. Both need guardrails, by the way. These guardrails that we need to stop misinformation. That's massively important. Social media, etc. Just huge. But there aren't them in America. Now, you should all be worried about that. Just like in industrial revolutions, we know that in the past, industrial revolutions that have no environmental or social guardrails basically destroy part of the world, because they do. Victorians, I mean, if we do exactly what the Victorians and other people did in the industrial revolutions, we'd be appalled. But we don't, because they won. But they did a lot of bad things. Let's be fair.
Because we do have to think about the environment too, right? That's
absolutely, there's the environment too. But there's also the social environment. There's the environment and there's the social environment. And then there's the military stuff, which is almost a different thing. Now, all these things, this is why it's worrying what America is doing. And by the way, when people say America wants to catch up with China, I think you might not quite understand the world globally, that China, unfortunately, has been ahead of the Americans in AI for a while. And I don't think that America can catch up. I know no one likes that thing, but just because ChatGPT, I mean, you look at the LLMs and you look at the open source ones, you look at a lot of stuff that's happening and America is not winning. And by the way, hasn't been for quite a while. I mean, I was in Shanghai 7 years ago, but winning then. They were doing amazing things then because they have, and by the way, this is not bashing either side or saying either side's right. But when you have a government that can control most of the data flow and actually say what companies do, that government and society is likely to win. The open market can't beat that. Now that's a different point. And don't get me wrong, ChatGPT, amazing what they've done, so many users, etc. But they are hemorrhaging cash, right?
Yes.
Like if you look at the amount of trillions of dollars that's needed to prop up the American AI economy, and by the way, that's not just prop up the American AI economy, that's propping up the economy of the American economy. You all know as more than I do that the FTSE 500 or whatever it's going, it's something like 90% of the returns are only about 3% of the companies. Like it's crazy. Like it's too big to break, so they have to throw money at it, which is why everyone's changing what they're talking about, especially around AI, and we're doing this whole AGI thing and all these other things. Now, for us normal human beings, we don't have to really be involved in that conversation because your stuff will work almost no matter what. Now, my big thing is, and I've been talking about it for maybe 3 years, is that we're missing a trick here because the large language models that everyone's using, which do need guardrails and need ethics and etc., but they won't have very many ethics because it's in the free market and because it's laissez-faire capitalism and they're trying to play a race of the arms race. So it's not likely they're going to become ethical because they're going to say we can't afford to lose the race to China. So they're going to get away with it. Problem here is, and this is the big one for anyone who has a business, is that actually you're missing a trick because it's not the large language models you want to be using. It's actually small language models you want to be using. It's actually not stuff that goes on the internet. It's stuff that you have on your premises.
Yes.
Like the military should, of course, the military's not going to be using Grok or whatever it is. There might be some fundamental technology underneath it, but they're not going to go online and, what should we do with this? Of course they're not. They've got their own systems. Of course they have.
Yes.
And even those systems, I'd be worried about because of cybersecurity and hacking. Like you don't want it to be able to be hacked. And who knows if you've got some software for somewhere else, but don't get me started because that's your area of expertise and not mine. All I'll say is in the fifth industrial revolution, we're missing the point. If I go back to the electricity prep, right now we can actually have our own solar panels and have our own electricity. And we don't need to be hooked up to the grid. We don't need to buy it off one supplier. Right now, you can download a small language model into your server and start training it as your automated intern with your company information as proprietary data sets in a safe sandboxed environment that you would own forever. And yet, most companies have not touched that with the barge or haven't done it. And most employees don't even know conceptually that's an idea. But actually, as a leader, you should, because really, you're all CTOs now.
Yes.
Every leader should be saying, what's our sovereignty? What's our data sovereignty principle here? How can we make sure my team is safe with all their IP? Because we don't want that falling into the wrong hands. But more importantly, we don't want this to be monetized. I'm not saying that Microsoft could do it, but if you read their terms and conditions, they're quite opaque. And if you just said what you've just said there, Bob, which is the AI thing in Silicon Valley has real no regulation, why wouldn't they go, we've brought out an accountant 101 now because we've read all the accounting information that they've been putting into Copilot?
In
fact, actually, wouldn't it be in their interest? It'd almost be illegal for them not to because it's in the shareholder interest, right? That's the difference. And I think that's where everyone's got to start looking is in this fifth industrial revolution, giving all the power away to like 3 or 4 companies we know aren't regulated and aren't particularly great morally might be what the market says is good practice, but monopolistic capitalism doesn't work because it doesn't. It's bad for the consumer. We know that. We inherently know that. But then again, I thought at one point, Bob, we might fall out about my political leaning. So.
No, thank you so much. This really gets people thinking. I guess that's one thing, one of my objectives with this podcast. I don't have all of the answers. I have experts like you, but at least you get us thinking, right? Maybe what we're doing is not the right thing in the long term. Because you don't really want to be short-sighted, especially with this technology. It has potential that kind of scares me at times, especially the way it is moving so fast, and sometimes people don't really think about not just first degree consequences, but like the second degree and third degree consequences after that. So I like to be more strategic than I am tactical, and sometimes I am just concerned just a little bit. But anyway, so we have about 10 minutes left. Let me get into the last segment of the podcast where I try to get into your head and what you've learned, leadership principles that have helped you be as successful as you are. One question I will ask is, what do you believe is the greatest lesson you've learned in life so far? Not just in life, in general. In
life in general. Life in general. Life in general, without going too deep, I'd say that hurt people hurt people. That is something that it took me a good, 45 years to realize. That often when someone does something negative to you, you've got to kind of look at maybe the why. Why did they do that? I think this also moves into the world of organizations and, of course, in leadership as well. And that's the thing, isn't it? We're in a bit of a world because of this fifth industrial revolution where there's a lot of hurt people. There's a lot of people that feel that they don't have a voice. There's a lot of people that are making some pretty odd decisions around things. And fear, is one of the biggest multipliers. And that's what we need to get rid of. I'm not going to go as cliche as say love is the answer, because it might not be, but certainly fear isn't. I think that's where we are at the moment, geographically or geopolitically, should I say. There is a temptation for us to fall into this kind of darkness because of our own fears around change, but change is the only constant. So maybe they're the two things, hurt people, but change is the only constant. They're my two biggest lessons.
Okay, and what has that taught you?
Well, the hurt people thing is to just be more empathetic. I talk about emotional intelligence being truly important in the fifth industrial revolution. That doesn't mean I'm particularly emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
But I can recognize and understand that it's going to be an important trait, and it's something that I need to develop in myself. But I have a kind of inherent kind of growth mindset. I know I'm a work in progress. But I do know that one of the areas I need to look at more is being more empathetic, and which is why before I wouldn't thought that. Before I go, oh, someone's hurt me, I will, I'll hurt them back. If this is my, I will get them back. Now that doesn't understand why they might have hurt you, and if you can take a step back and is it the Japanese account with the 7 whys principle, where you ask why 7 times? Same principle again. The other one I've actually got tattooed to my chest, which is Kaizen, or however you say Kaizen, 1% improvement all the time. They're the big things that I've learned. So, it's getting more emotionally intelligent. It's making sure that you're not trying to strain yourself too much and not having burnout. There's a horrible stat coming out, literally, I think it was today, it's about 30 people who are under 35. It's something like 67% of them. It might not be that high, it might be 55, but are in burnout. Leaders are in burnout stages as we speak. And that's a lot of people. And I think one of the reasons why there are so many people in burnout, because we forget that there is a cognitive load when it comes to using AI, which people haven't quite got yet. The fact that you can have 5 interns suddenly makes you a manager, right? Now, if everyone suddenly becomes a manager, that's a different skill set. And actually, there's a different cognitive load. Yes, you can become 20 or 40% more productive, but actually, you might want to work only 4 days a week or 3 days a week because of it. And this is the bit between me and you, Bob. This is why I try to help companies change. Because I actually think it's good for society. If people didn't spend so much time in the offices, I know with hybrid solutions and things, but if we had more time to look after our daughters or look after family, because we're going to have more 80-year-olds than we're going to have 18-year-olds. And everyone's saying, oh, what will we do? Well, you won't work as many hours and you'll look after your parents.
Yes.
That's what we'll do. Now, a lot of people who are leaders don't like that because they don't want to look after their parents, but that's a different point.
No, thank you for sharing that. It reminds me, during the pandemic, I know Silicon Valley slowed down considerably. And I think people kind of, reflected back on their priorities, because if you're in your dying bed, you're not going to be like, oh, I want to go to the office for like 4 more hours or anything like that.
Exactly.
And, we definitely also proven that you could do all of your work at home. You don't even have to leave your house. But things like
isn't it weird? But isn't it weird at that time? It's weird because I love the fact you mentioned it, because very few people mention COVID times, by the way. It proves how psychologically damaging it was for everybody. And it should have been. Worldwide pandemic, everyone had to stay indoors for 2 years or 2.5 years. Everyone went to prison for 2.5 years. Tremendously damaging, right? And then everyone comes back and they're like, I don't know why, but employee engagement's down. It's like, hello? Anyone? We all thought we were going to die. Like, the end of the world stuff, we all started prepping. Then people are like, right, get back into work, get back into the offices. No, thank you. Why not? We've proven it. We proved you don't have to. But we need you to get back in the fields because we paid for them. No, I can't believe people are leaving our companies. What? Like, it was just then, for God's sake. Amazingly, people don't talk. It proves how traumatic it was. No one talks about it. That change, and this is why I talk about the hybrid and happy. I wrote a book, that one as well. But the productivity lifts you get from hybrid work is pretty intense and pretty good. But also people would, you'd rather lose $10,000, it may have been more of your wage than have to go back into the office, right? Now, leadership's got to realize that change doesn't go back. Also, leaders are a bit naughty because it's often the leaders who aren't in the offices, right?
Yes.
They've been doing it for 2 decades. And then all of a sudden we can all do it. And they go, oh, no, that's not fair. because I'm a leader and it's taken me 10 years to become one. But you love your life. Yeah, I do. Could I like my life? Well, no, because I didn't like it when I was your age.
Yeah.
No wonder the next generation's a bit cross with it.
No, that is great of you sharing that. It really makes you think. So, what do you believe is the secret to your success? Now, you've scaled a lot of businesses from marketing to emerging tech, AI, 5G as well, future of work, TEDx talk everywhere. I mean, why do you think you've been so successful?
This was the question I was worried about when you were saying why not successful. Number one, I think that I always know I'm a work in progress. I'm very lucky in some respect that because of my neurodiversity, I get very hyper-focused on things. You could also call it a curse, but there you go. I would not be, between me and you, Bob, I would not consider myself to be tremendously successful in modern world and the way of finances, etc. Because for me, money is not a driver. For me, it's about flexibility. It's about, you can't take the money with you. I don't understand why people get so obsessed with money when everybody knows you die. And so, living a life well and being able to give time to things I believe in and being innately curious about this amazing thing that we call life, they're all characters, or they're all features or characteristics that I just presumed everyone had. Yes. And so when people are like to me, why have you started so many businesses? My answer is because I could, because I can. And they're like, oh, but then that one failed and it cost you, £30,000, £50,000. That's okay. It's okay. We'll do another one. We'll start again. We'll get investment. We'll do something else. Everyone was like, but Dan, you're always interested in this world of AI and what it can do. And I'm like, we now have a chance where we can fundamentally change the world. And actually, it means that everyone can work less and we can put time back into society more, which is what the world needs. And yet everybody's like, why should I use AI? If you use AI to become more productive, you can spend that 20% or 40% of your time that you save on being either a better leader, being more emotionally intelligent, giving people time off so they can help their world become a better place, but also for yourself to give time for charities and other organizations you believe in. Yes. This is a tremendous opportunity in the world. And yet we still in this world where we're going, oh, let's make loads more money for people. We can do both. We can actually make more money and make the world a better place and make our employees' lives better and happier.
At the same time, It's not the either or, it could be both. Wow.
It's always going to be both, Bob. Absolutely right. It's not an either or. It's always got to be a both. And that's the emotional intelligence thing I talk about, is because the idea now that we're in this kind of hyper competitive space still, where everyone's antagonistic, where everyone's going against each other, it doesn't make any sense when actually the means of production means that the knowledge sector that we have has grown over 100 times. We are no longer in that world. You cannot be in this world. Now you can be, but if you're not emotionally intelligent enough to realize we've got to collaborate and make the world a better place, then I think your time might not be done. And don't get me wrong, I'm a futurist, so it might take 5 years, it might take 10. But I would start making those internal changes now. And I can pretty much promise you as companies to make, without realizing that your employee happiness is key to your success, those companies, I think, will go much quicker than the others. Yes. And if you have a culture where everyone has a fixed mindset and you can't change and you don't realize you're in a revolution, I can pretty much guarantee you those companies won't exist.
Wow. Okay. We are almost out of time. Let me ask you this, and then I'm going to ask you what we can do to add value back to you. If today was your last day, what would you have liked your final contribution to be?
The last day on Earth? Oh, okay. It's for me, it's very simple, to make sure that my daughter is fine for the rest of her existence and that she's happy or as happy and content as she could be, which I know doesn't sound very social, but I think that charity starts at home, and to make sure that she's okay between me and you would be my key thing. Now, if you want me to open that up, then the reason why I do what I do, the reason why I write the books and the reason why I do the trainings and the rest of it is all online, etc., is because that legacy piece to me is pretty important too. Yes. So actually, I've done quite a bit already, and so I'm hoping that when I'm gone, God, make me emotional now. I don't want to die, because there's so much to do, Bob. I've got so much to do. A lot of that stuff is online, and I'm hoping that people will, take that, read that stuff, learn from that stuff, and then change their businesses because of it. Yeah. Whether that changes everything from we're playing up against some pretty big players like the likes of Elon Musk, etc. But there's only one way you can change the world, and that is by believing that you can.
Yes. So, wow. Really, really insightful. And if you could solve any problem in the world, you have this magic wand and you could do that. What is the one thing you're going to want to solve first thing tomorrow morning?
I'm going to say, it sounds ridiculous, I'd say the planet, because without the planet, we don't have anything anyway. It'd be great to say poverty, but poverty you wouldn't solve anything anyway, because it's all relative. And so you could bring everyone's thing up. But if you notice, this is the weird thing about life. So many people believe that life's got worse, but actually life has fundamentally always got better. On a global scale, every marker for success and health and all these other things has actually risen. It's not gone down. Globally. Now, it might have gone down for the UK. It might have gone down for America. It might even be going down for the West, but not globally. So on math. But if we don't fix the planet, then we don't have anywhere else to live. And that is the problem. And this is the weird thing about Elon Musk, etc., those folks, is because they believe that we can leave and go to Mars or leave to go to the moon and then go to Mars. That is a 50-year project. Maybe a 100-year project. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we shouldn't try it.
Yes.
But we've got to fix the world before we move, right? We've got things to do.
Yes.
We've got to try to fix the planet. Yeah. So wave a magic wand, fix the planet. I don't know how you do it.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Dan. So grateful you were here. So how can we add value back to you?
Come and follow me on LinkedIn. Listen to some of my rantings and ravings over at LinkedIn. Always happy to have new followers and meet people. I've got I'll send you a link to a newsletter that I have as well, which is around the Friday of work. So it's the future of work on a Friday every fortnight. So that's my newsletter, and of course my website, which is www.dansödergren.com, and of course the book, The Fifth Industrial Revolution, which you brilliantly put there. Which I did. And also, if you've listened to the podcast, I'll do this as a thank you to you, Bob. Is anyone who's listened to the podcast and they contact me on LinkedIn, I will send them a discount code to get the book for free.
Wow.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. So generous. So generous. All right. Very last question for you. If you could go back and give a piece of advice to your 17-year-old self standing at the edge of this incredible career you've had, what would you say to 17-year-old Dan?
I'm about to give you a particularly far too personal and honest answer there. There you go. I very rarely have a filter. I would say, I'd say be careful. Remember that technology comes in waves, and always look at the hype curve before you make a move. And most probably slow yourself down by 5 to 10 years and work on getting to the wave rather than just predicting that it's on the horizon. That's if I wanted to be richer, which would be just a bit of a naughty trick.
Nothing wrong with that. Thanks again for sharing. We're pretty much out of time now. Is there a question I should have asked you that I didn't get a chance to ask before we end the show?
I could honestly say no. I think we've covered pretty much everything. I know that you were very interested around the servant leadership points and different things. There's so many questions I have around cybersecurity, etc. But that would be a completely different world. I'd have to be interviewing you. I think there's always the thing about what would happen. I thank you that you didn't ask me in 10 years' time what should leaders be thinking about, because I honestly believe if you're a futurist and you're talking about 10 years, you're lying around you. If you can do 10 months, you're going to be doing pretty lucky, in my opinion. Maybe the fundamentals don't change. My goodness, the technology is going to. Yeah,
because 15, 20 years ago, when we did a cybersecurity roadmap, usually we went 5 years. But today, it makes absolutely no sense because things are going to change so drastically. It's going to be completely a big waste of time. Maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years at the most. The way technology is just changing. Okay, so I'd like to end with something positive. And what is something that you are feeling optimistic about?
I'm going to be cliche and say the world and AI, because I truly am optimistic about it. I think if we do this as a global community and if we are sensible about what we're doing, the opportunity of small language models to fundamentally change businesses is mind-blowing, because everybody then gets an extra member of staff for every member of staff. Wow. But only when you do it properly with the right data on premises, doing it properly, investing the right amount of money, giving people the right amount of resources, and we don't just trust the likes of Copilot and ChatGPT, because doing so is really quite dangerous. But we can, just like with electricity, we can charge our own businesses and make our own electricity and make our money from using the electricity. What I'm saying is, you don't have to necessarily pay a massive company to supply your electricity, when actually you can start supplying it yourself.
Wow. And I love that you said investing, because it's not a cost center, it's really an investment into yourself and into the future. Wow. Powerful.
This is it. Well, as you mentioned that, I'd also say this classic one, which is spend 3 times more on the people than you do the technology. That is something that people are not doing at the moment. They are simply spending money on technology, not training people up, and not spending money on the people. But it's the people that need to use the technology. And please don't get me started about AI agents. No, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're a cybersecurity nightmare.
All right, so this is it. Thanks again for your time. You've been super generous. So we went a little bit over. The very last question on just one word. What is one word that represents our shared experience on this podcast today, all the way from England?
I'd say great.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dan. And I'm so grateful and so thankful. And I'm really glad that we had a chance to talk. I think this show is probably going to be one of the most popular for this season. Again, it's already available as a replay on YouTube and LinkedIn, and it should be available on all of the major podcast platforms by the end of today. Thank you so much, Dan. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Bob. Brilliant.
All right, everyone. This was quite a show. I am so grateful to Dan. And later today, I'm going to have 2 more interviews. I'm going to be speaking to Professor Melissa Bury. She's a scientist turned strategist, operational architect, and author. We're going to be talking about when science meets strategy. And then later today, I will be talking to Senior Master Sergeant, U.S. Air Force, retired now, Siobhan Chevy Maxwell. And she's also the selling of a best-selling book, Women, Brave. But of course, I also love to read books about women, because I believe what applies to women applies to men and vice versa. But anyway, she's going to be here, and we're going to be talking about deck plate leadership, but also she helps with the federal execution partner. She works with tech founders who want to gain federal opportunities here in the US through qualified proposal and core partnership. So it's going to be another great discussion later today. And then I'm going to be back later today. I don't know what time yet, but I'm doing a book study of Proverbs. But we're going to be using artificial intelligence for a recap for Proverbs chapter 16, 17, and 18. So I didn't do it yesterday and the day before, so I am going to catch up, and we're going to do all 3 by the end of today. All right, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching. Again, very, very grateful to my friend Dan Södergren, all the way from the United Kingdom, AI expert. And so thank you so much for sharing his knowledge with us. All right, bye for now. And for those of you who are going to come back in the next couple of hours, I'll be looking forward to seeing you as we speak to Professor Melissa Bury and also Senior Master Sergeant Chevy. All right, bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leadership and Success Podcast with your host, Coach BZ. If today's episode added value to your leadership journey, be sure to subscribe, share, and join us again for more wisdom nuggets on how to lead better and achieve greater success. Remember, leadership is the most critical skill of our time. The world will always need leaders to inspire others, drive innovation, and execute meaningful strategy. So why not count yourself among the bold leaders shaping the 21st century? Until next time, stay inspired, stay committed, and keep leading with excellence.